So tonight, let's talk about religion. For some reason, it always gets uncomfortable in any room whenever the discussion is brought up, but as for me, if it wasn't for my faith, I can honestly say that I wouldn't be here today. Now, I'm not here to preach to you or give you a sermon or anything like that. I don't have the authority to, nor the interest. My goal is to make you rethink what you think you know about Christianity. So why should you care? 4 years ago, I was on the fast track to becoming the next Steph Curry, or at least I thought I was. Now, I was a big-time Bible boy back home in a little town called Oviedo, Florida. Towards the end of the school year in my youth group, they gave us this book to read called Radical by David Platt. I give this book 80% of the credit for turning me away from Christianity. The other 10% were the so-called Christians around me. The last 10% was due to my own fear. We'll get to that later. Now, Radical took my world and turned it completely upside down. Everything I knew and everything I thought I knew. Now, most people have this preconceived notion that once you believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross, that everything's all good. It's all peaches and roses. It's like a get-out-of-jail-free card. What if I told you that's not entirely all that's there? What if I told you that's not all that's in the Bible? 4 years ago, I would have told you that's crazy, and 4 years ago, that's what I did. I read the book and wrote most of it off as a theological viewpoint that's just a little bit radical, but it's funny how things tend to go full circle. Fast forward to about 6 months ago, and I'm living it up at college. And for those of you guys that go to a small campus, it's as much of an oxymoron as it sounds. Our idea of a good Friday night is playing Monopoly and singing along to Disney soundtracks. Now, I'm living a double life in every sense of the word. By daytime, I'm the energetic kid that's on full academic scholarship, trying to join every club on campus. By nighttime, I'm out partying with my friends, trying to go to every club in town. Still believe in God, but you wouldn't catch me dead in church. I figured it was best not to claim being Christian than to be a hypocrite. But you see, the problem with not having a moral guide is the fact that you don't have one. So who keeps you in check when you're going too far? How do you know when you've gone off the deep end, and how can you perceive what's right and what's wrong? The thing is, you can't. I have a great family, and they support me through pretty much everything. But after a while, my attitude became too much to handle, and thus we stopped talking. I have a great girlfriend, and she put up with pretty much everything. But after a while, my debauchery went too far, and thus I didn't have that either. One September night, I was sitting there, and then it hit me. Who's in your corner, Matt? Nobody. At that moment, I received a lifeline in the form of a phone call from my girlfriend. We decided it was time for an intervention. As for me, I was ready to make a change. I tried going to counseling, which didn't help much. I switched up my friend group, which helped a little bit. After about 2 weeks, I felt like I was getting absolutely nowhere. Then one Wednesday night, me and my brother Aaron were leaving Marine Biology Club, and he's like, bro, let's go to Kingdom Club today. And I said, you will not catch me dead in a Bible study. 5 minutes later, I'm in the Bible study. So as I'm sitting in there, hearing the good word, hearing about how God was changing people's lives for the better, I was inspired. I had that feeling in my chest that I hadn't had since I was a little kid in youth group. I was hooked. That night, we stayed up till 4 a.m. in the Marriott, talking scripture with the leaders of Kingdom Club. The rest is history. I got plugged into the local megachurch, joined the photography team, started reading Bible plans, doing mass recruiting to Kingdom Club. I was bringing players to Jesus' team like I was Nick Saban. But you see, the funny thing is, everything goes full circle. So my men's group pastor gave us access to this thing called Right Now Media, which is essentially Christianity Netflix. So as I'm scrolling through there, I'm looking for something to watch, and what do I find? Radical by David Platt. Naturally, I'm curious, so I click on it, and it concluded to be just like deja vu. So I'm sitting here thinking to myself, this can't be a coincidence, is it? Is God trying to prove something to me? Is there something I'm missing? So I took matters into my own hands. Over winter break, I went back home, cracked open the Bible, flipped to the New Testament, started reading, and here we are today. Now, most people have this preconceived idea that if you believe Jesus Christ died on the cross, then everything's okay. It's like a get-out-of-jail-free card. What if I told you that's not all that's there? What if I told you that's not all that's in the Bible? 4 years ago, I would have told you that's crazy. But today, I wholeheartedly agree. Here's why. You see, over the years, the message has gotten slightly polluted and a little diluted. Society has these misconceptions of what a Christian seems like, but what does Jesus say a Christian's really like? All my life, I've heard Jesus this, Jesus that, from everybody from my grandma to my youth pastors to random people I go into across the street. But after a lot of intensive research, this is what I believe to be true. Number one, Jesus is not a white male. To be honest, it's scientifically impossible and just an invalid statement overall. Jesus was born in the city of Bethlehem. Bethlehem is not too far south of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is by modern-day Israel. Therefore, Jesus is Palestinian, rendering his appearance akin to that of any modern-day Arab man. So what would happen if Jesus were to step onto a plane in America today? Ironically, chances are he'd be discriminated against by the same people that claim to be his followers and end up in TSA getting patted down and checked by security because of the color of his skin and his ethnicity. That doesn't seem very Christian-like to me. Which brings us to number 2. What is the term Christian? Back in the good old days, the first century days, people didn't claim to be Christian just to get ahead in the polls. You got tortured, beaten, martyred, killed. To be truthful, how many of us believe in something, no matter what it is, enough to willingly die for it? It's a good question. So now, how do we define the term Christian? Per Merriam-Webster's, a Christian is someone who professes in the teachings of Jesus Christ. But that's obviously been a point of contention over the years, so we'll break that down even further. Jesus is quoting using the word disciple throughout his life and never once uses the word Christians. So, if the first Christians were synonymous with the word disciple, then are not all Christians therefore disciples of Jesus Christ? Jesus is also quoting him and his disciples a little Christianity 101. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love your enemies. Here's another one. Care for those in distress. These are just a few among many more along these lines. So if you love your neighbor as yourself, why would you judge and fear him based on the color of his skin? If you love your enemies, why would you advocate eradicating their existence without giving the slightest bit of consideration as to why they feel the way that they do? If you care for those in distress, why would you feel angry about paying more taxes to assist families in your country who are struggling to feed their children despite their best efforts? If you make hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, more power to you. But if that is your salary and you claim to be Christian, then it's mighty hypocritical of you to dismiss anyone that's not in your tax bracket as deserving of their position simply because they haven't worked as hard as you. Now, additionally, many politicians use the word Christian and slap it on as a label to justify their agendas as morally righteous. Let's make things clear. Example, if I claim to be Christian, then it's not my place to judge anyone based on their background, because that's what is written. Thus, how can anyone claiming to be Christian possibly justify rejecting those in need and ostracizing people simply because of where they come from? Jesus himself said, before you take the speck out of someone else's eye, first take the log out of your own. If you believe in the book that anyone calling themselves Christian claims to believe in, then it's not your place to judge others. You're required to love. Number 3, the youth, my generation, are aware of this hypocrisy and are fed up with it. I talk to a lot of people on my campus. Conversations tend to go the same way. Christians are kind of cultish. Christians just sit around and judge people for sinning when they turn around and do the same things themselves. Never heard of a liberal Christian for a reason, etc. And to be honest, 99% of the time, I tend to agree with what they're saying. Frankly, I can't even find fault with it because, in some cases, I still do feel the same way. Our entire lives, we've been fed the same things without any explanation for them. As we get older, naturally, we're going to start asking questions. In school, we learn about theories such as Big Bang and evolution, and philosophical movements such as Enlightenment and humanism. Naturally, there's going to be a conflict of interest. For the people like myself, growing up in a church-going household, these questions never quite get answered, and if they do, it doesn't help at all. In this regard, the ones we're supposed to learn ideology from have done us a disservice. No one is going to just blindly follow what they're being told. We're free thinkers. We require explanations for things. And if you're going to try to make us religious, we require an explanation for doing so. Since our generation hasn't really received one, we've gone in the entirely opposite direction. We're immersing ourselves in an instantaneous world where we indulge in quick pleasures and reject what we view as rigid indoctrination vehemently. We're desperately in search of fulfillment. And since we're struggling to find it, we identify whatever we can, resulting in 30% of the millennial generation identifying as spiritual rather than religious. That desire for spiritual fulfillment is still there, but we don't want anything to do with the ideology we've grown up in, where hypocrisy is normal and true faith is considered radical. The rift between the younger generations and the older ones is growing larger and larger, and it's starting to tear society apart as a whole. The recent increase in the decrease of civility following our last election season is just one of the markers. It's a lot to think about, and it's kind of depressing, isn't it? But as for me, I find solace in number 4. No matter what you and I may believe, you must believe my truth. What does that mean? The changes in my life that have occurred since I decided to put my faith in Jesus Christ cannot be debated. We can debate all day about the validity of Christianity, whether God is real, whether the Bible is a lie, and I would love to sit down and discuss that with you. But what we can't argue is the way my life has forever changed since I decided to put my faith in something bigger than me. This isn't a sermon. I'm not here to preach to you. Everything I've said comes out of the same Bible that every Christian claims to believe in. And if you wish to fact check me, I insist that you do so. So that's besides the point. The point is this. For years, I lived recklessly in reckless abandonment with regards to nothing. Just material pleasures and distractions from the issues of the world that plague my mind. Today, I'm actively trying to make a difference in any medium that I can. From starting my own social enterprise to aid self-actualization, to maintaining positivity with my friends despite the situation, to sitting here on stage talking to you all today. Now, I don't expect you to leave here and redeclare your faith in any religion, but I firmly believe that if you share your personal stories of fulfillment with everyone else, then we have a chance at helping someone find their purpose in life, no matter what you put your faith in. Taking care of our world, of nature, and the people is something we can all believe in. If not for yourselves, then at least for the future generations that will inherit this world from us. In scientific circles, there's a theory called the butterfly effect, that a butterfly that flutters its wings in Japan can cause a hurricane in Florida, for example. I firmly believe that our individual actions, no matter how small you may think, make more of a difference than you know. Let's show the world that love always prevails over evil. Thank you.